Hi everybody, this is Eric from Longbox Review at longboxreview.wordpress.com. Before I get into the show, I have a couple announcements to make. First of which is I was a guest on another podcast, the Heroes and Villains podcast, where we talked about Dick Grayson / Nightwing. So you should check that out. It's at heroesandvillains.libsyn.com. And so yeah, just check it out and let Bruce know how much you like his show. If you would please subscribe as well. I'll have the link in the show notes for those that want to check it out. And you can also follow Bruce on his Twitter account if you'd like, and that is at HV Podcast. HV Podcast. Okay. Second announcement is that I have decided recently to switch my podcast host, and I'm starting to move everything over to Libsyn. So if you are subscribed to the Longbox Review podcast, thank you first of all. Second of all, you should update your RSS feed for the show, and that is longbox.libsyn.com/RSS. Now I'm doing both feeds concurrently for a while, but at a certain point I'm going to cut off the old feed and just stick with the longbox.libsyn.com/RSS feed. Everything, if you subscribe through iTunes, everything should still work through that. I'm hoping, but just in case something doesn't go right, I wanted to let you know about the new feed. So there you go. If you have any questions about this, you can certainly email me and ask those at longboxreview@gmail.com. Now back to the show. Welcome to the show. I am going to talk about 3 different titles today. Let's see, Point of Impact from Image Comics. Also from Image Comics, Nowhere Men. And finally, Thor, God of Thunder from Marvel Comics. Let's see, I chose these 3 because I recently acquired, well, with the exception of Thor, the most recent issues. And by that I mean Point of Impact is a limited series, 4 issues, but even though I asked my local comic shop to add that title to my list, they were not able to get number 1 for me for some reason. And so I had to eventually order it from an online retailer. I think it was Midtown Comics that I got that from. So I got issues 2 through 4 from my local comic shop, but I could not read it. I would not read any of it until I had all the issues. And so I finally got that. I actually got that probably 2 to 3 weeks ago, but because of all the other comics I'm reading and other things going on in my life, I haven't been able to sit down and read all these issues. And so just a few days ago, as of this recording, I did read Point of Impact 1 through 4. Similarly, Nowhere Men, I did not pre-order that, even though I was intrigued by the solicitation copy that I read. But I kept hearing, by the time the second issue had come out, I was hearing all this positive buzz about the title, and so I emailed one of my comic book providers, not my local comic shop, but I asked the online retailer DCBS to add that title to my list and ask them to get as of issue 4, and then ask them to provide the first 3 issues to me if they could, and they added them to my orders, but for some reason issue number 2 got canceled, so they were not able to get any of the variants or later publications, later editions. So anyway, I again, like I did with Point of Impact, I got issue number 2 I think it's a second or third printing of issue number 2. So that way I was able to finally get that last piece of the puzzle, so to speak, with Nowhere Men, and was able to read the first 4 issues of that. And then, let's see, yes, 4 issues of that. And then just the other day, I decided, again, because of the positive feedback I had been hearing and reading about, I decided to stop in at my local Hastings to see if they actually had all of the recent issues, or all of the issues so far coming out for Thor, God of Thunder. And they had every issue but 7. And issue number 8, the one issue of number 8 that they had was kind of beat up a little bit. I think too many people had been pawing it. So I decided not to get issue number 8, and I said I'd take my chances. But they did have issues 1 through 6, and I just tweeted this, or I tweeted this at the time, but I commented how I bought these issues at cover price, $3.99, and wondered aloud, so to speak, if Thor: God of Thunder was worth $3.99. Well, so you'll have to stick around for that to find out if that's true or not. So let's get started. These 3 titles. So let's start with Point of Impact. This is by Jay Faerber, who's the writer, and Corey, I think it's pronounced Corey. It's Koray, but I'm pretty sure that you would say that as Corey Coronel. That's the artist. It's a black and white comic, 4-issue limited series. I enjoyed it for the most part. It's a murder mystery. You might think that since it's a black and white murder mystery that it might be more or less a noir tale. It is not. It is actually quite a pedestrian murder mystery involving the deceased, Nicole, who happens to be the wife of one of the main characters here, Mitch, who is a reporter for a newspaper, and he basically tells his boss that once he finds out that his wife is dead, that he's going to pursue the story anyway, even though he shouldn't. That classic tale of like cops and reporters doing things that they should not be doing when it's a personal thing, but it's personal, so they got to do it. And I'm making fun of that trope, not necessarily of the depiction in this comic. Also involved is a character called Boone, Patrick Boone, who happens to be Nicole's lover, as we find out fairly quickly on in the story. So, and I probably will be talking about some of the stuff in depth. So if you haven't read it, there might be some spoilers, but I'll try to keep that to a minimum in case you want to pick this up. And in fact, you can pick, or at least I think it was, you could pre-order the trade paperback of Point of Impact, which I kind of wish I had done. I wish I'd waited now, all these months later, just to get the trade paperback on this 4-issue limited series instead of doing what I did. But that being said, like I said, it's a Point of Impact is which is an interesting title. I'll start with that because it's pretty blatant in that Nicole gets thrown off a roof and she lands on the top of a car. So there's your point of impact. Other than that, I can't really think what else in this story has to do with the title. So, but everything stems from that. So from that point of impact, that murder, the story unfolds and you find out why exactly it goes on. It involves a corporation who is releasing a product that probably they shouldn't, and that's how Nicole gets involved. I won't say exactly how. Boone decides that he's going to figure out what happened there, and he does his own investigation. So the story really follows Boone and Mitch's investigation of this, and it also follows the pair of cops that are investigating the murder as well. And it turns out Wait, I just figured out what this other point of impact is. Um, so the one of the cops, the female cop of the story, knows Nicole as well, but not in any real sense. It's just that they have a class together. I think some sort of exercise class, I believe it was. So when the cop sees who the deceased is, she immediately recognizes her, and then stays, even though she shouldn't be on the case. She remains on the case because it's important to her for some reason. So there's your point of impact. Nicole is the point, and her death impacts these various people. There's your thematic connection. Let's see. Beyond that, I guess I really don't have much to say about it. It was an interesting read. I really enjoyed Corey Coronel's art. There's a lot of use of black in this, not necessarily like big black thick lines in the artwork, but just a lot of blackness on the page, a lot of shadow, and a lot of it is used to affect, to have some sort of emotional impact to the scene. But otherwise, it's just using black and white. It's a black and white comic, so that's what you have to use. I kind of got the sense that if this was printed on perhaps not so glossy paper, that effect would be used a little bit better to more effect. Maybe, I don't know. I'm thinking of the paper quality that's in the Fairest title, which is not a glossy stock. That might have, I don't know, contributed to the noirish quality of this book. But again, it's not presented as a noir tale, but just the look and feel of it could be enhanced by that, I suppose. Just random thought there. Let's see. Like I said, I enjoyed it for the most part. So if you find that intriguing, you can check that out. Next up, Nowhere Man from Image Comics. This is by Eric Stevenson's the writer, Nate Bellegarde is the artist, and Jordi Belair is the colorist. What an interesting book. Like I said, this is a book that I just heard some buzz about and decided I should check this out. And like I said, I got 4 issues, pre-ordered number 5, and I hadn't read it yet. So I thought, since I'm already 5 issues in as far as ordering, I should probably check out the title and see if I really want to continue with it. And I'm glad I did. And I'm sort of mad at myself for waiting so long to pick this up and read it, because this is a wild ride. This is fun. This is interesting. Visually, it's got some great stuff. It's got it kind of follows along, kind of like in Watchmen, where you had book excerpts and other bits, extra, text bits. There's some of that in here. There's mock advertisements. So magazine interviews featuring these characters in this world. It's just lots of fun. You may have heard the tagline and may have bought the T-shirt, and I kind of wish I had ordered that now, but we'll see if those are offered in some future previews and I can order it. But science is the new rock and roll. So that's the tagline, and I can see that very much. So what this comic is about so far are these 4 guys, these 4 scientists. I don't know if it was actually referred to in the series yet, but I think of them as the Fab Four of science. And that's Dade Ellis, Simon Grimshaw, Emerson Strange, and Thomas Walker. And what they've done, so here I'll just read this bit from the first issue. Separately, they are among the greatest thinkers in the world, but together they comprise the all-out scientific supergroup known as WorldCorp. Though they've only been together briefly, their incredible new venture is sending shockwaves through the science community, so we're giving you the lowdown on what makes these sensational young men tick in the latest edition of our exclusive Fact Finder series. And so this is from the Science Chronicle. So the book basically opens up with this excerpt from the Science Chronicle, giving you the stats on these guys. So, as a reader, immediately, you get the pictures of them, you get, where they're born, where they're from, what their degree is in, just some little bits about them, what their favorite film, what their favorite book, what their favorite song is. So you kind of get a sense of their personality just based on these little bits. What I really like about this, from a visual standpoint, one, it's not in this first issue. I think it's in the second issue, where the inside covers are actually part of the story. So you're getting, and I meant to count all these pages, but there's a lot of content in here for, how much is this? $2.99. At least the first, the second, the third is $2.99, and the fourth $2.99. I don't know how Image is making any money off of this, because this is good quality paper, it's color, lots of pages. Like I said, the inside covers are being used as part of the story or as part of the world building. If it's not actually part of the telling of the story, you get the inside cover is an ad or something that fits within this world. So you're getting a lot of content for $2.99. That's pretty awesome. Let's see. So, but basically, the story so far through issue 4 of this title is, well, we go back and forth in time. So, but the recent events have to do with the space station that World Corp has in orbit, along with a bunch of scientists and other personnel on it. There's this what they're saying is a virus that's going around. It turns out that the virus is mutating them, changing them in some ways, and it involves and you get introduced to all these interesting characters and what they're going through. So far I can't really tell all of them apart necessarily. There's a bunch of female characters, a bunch of male characters. Visually, they all kind of look the same to some degree. So in other words, if two guys have beards, I don't know who they are yet. And that's just me being a not careful reader. That's not to say that you can't follow along in the story. You don't need to know exactly who bearded person A and bearded person B is just yet. But so anyway, that's the now timeline and involved with the Fab Four. Although really we only see 3 of them, because the fourth one, Thomas Walker, has been legally declared dead at this point. We find out later. And one of them, Dade, what did I say his name was? Dade Ellis. I almost said Wilson for some reason. Dade Ellis has been in a coma after his incident with Simon Grimshaw, who, as we see in flashbacks, is a bit of a prick. He's the guy that's basically, we can do all this fun scientific stuff and move things forward, but you got to make money at it too. And so he's like I say, he's a bit of a dick. So something happened there. We'll find out eventually, I'm sure, what happened between Dade and Simon, and of course what happened to Thomas as well. Emerson Strange, he's the first shown with a big thick mustache and long hair. And later in the now timeline, he's shown as a balding, frail-looking guy. I think he's the oldest of the group, but it's really interesting that the world, like I said, the world building of this. So World Corp has introduced what is it called, the cubic, which is kind of like, so it's a cube, but it seems to be like kind of like a smartphone is to us now. What else? There's these, like I said, these great just advertisements or posters or whatever in here to kind of give you the kind of, like I said, build the world, and in the meantime you get all of the, or you get the story of the the people in the space station and then their eventual return to Earth. I won't reveal what happens exactly there, but some get changed, quite literally, physically get changed, and in some ways it's very helpful. In other ways, it's perhaps not. We haven't quite got there yet, but of course the World Corp people and Simon, who has split off into his own company, will be after these folks as well. So there's going to be some conflict coming up there. One thing I just wanted to mention, so like I said, there's flashbacks, there's now, and different time periods in the flashbacks. It's not just one time period that we're following. But I like what Eric Stevenson is doing in terms of writing, because we're not being told, explicitly, this is. I mean, in the first issue they kind of did that. Some years ago it says, and then it says now. But in later issues, we don't get that. It's just we get it from the context of what we're reading, and I really like that. I really appreciate that. I don't necessarily need to be told, everything about what's going on in the plot or the setting or whatever by the writer. So I really appreciate that he's doing that. The other thing I wanted to mention about this is that. And oh wait, first let me talk about the art, the Nate Bellegarde art. Very clean, very easy. It kind of reminds me of stuff I've read in Invincible. It's kind of similar to that style, to some degree. Sort of like a little bit like Danger Club too, in one sense, in my mind. And that's just my opinion. I'm not an art guy. I just look at it and know. Or make connections based on what I'm reading. But what's really interesting is to compare this, to me anyway, to compare this to Jonathan Hickman's Manhattan Projects. That's also, I believe, by Image as well, where it's about a bunch of, I want to say mad scientists, but they're not, not the typical mad scientists, but just, science, crazy science stuff. But it's set, of course, during the World War II era. But to me, it has a lot of similarities in terms of the crazy science that's in it, and the crazy personalities. They're not at all the same people, of course, but it's really interesting to me that Image is putting out two books that are somewhat similar, I guess. Of course, you could say that about any of the superhero comics put out by anybody, right? But it's just, I thought that was an interesting comparison, and maybe I should do a more in-depth look at that kind of stuff and really tell if the books really are that similar, or is it just this surface similarity. All right. Yeah, I think that's it on that one. Good book. Pick it up. I highly recommend this. It's like, if you like the crazy science stuff with an interesting plot and interesting character development starting here, I think. All right, next up is Thor, God of Thunder, and this is by Jason Aaron as the writer, Esad Ribic as the artist, Dean White as the colorist, Joe Sabino doing letters. Okay, so like I said, I've been hearing good things about it. Travis and I talked on our Marvel Now review about it. He's been reading it. I did not pick it up, and I kind of regretted that based on his and others' feedback. So like I said, I went to my local Hastings and grabbed the first 6 issues. And wow, now, okay, so the question I asked is it worth $3.99? Pretty close. Pretty damn close. So normally the books that I get from DCBS, I get them mostly 40% off. So what's that? That's a $3.99 book. I think that's $2.39. It's well worth that. I'll give you that. And it may be even worth, that my local comic shop gives me 10% off on titles that I subscribe to. And I think I would be happy with that as well. It's just really good. You get this whole aspect of following a storyline in different timelines, So you get younger Thor in the late 400s, and then you get modern day Thor, and then you get future Thor, future old Thor, you know, way in the future when all of the Norse gods, the Asgardians, are dead except for him. And this first storyline that Jason Aaron has come up with is that Thor is battling through these different timelines. He's battling this god killer Gore, which I thought the name was a bit too on the nose, but especially considering the origin story in issue, I believe it was 6, that was told. But I really like those first, well, actually 5 issues. The 6th issue was okay. You get the origin story. Yeah, you can understand some of the reasons why Gore is doing what he's doing, I guess. But those first 5 issues where Thor is encountering Gore for the first time, and then realizing in the modern day era, that Gore is still doing what he's doing, even though Thor thought he had taken care of this issue centuries ago. So he decides he's going to go off and take care of it again. But along the way, you get Thor encountering these dead gods from many planets, which I just think that's a really cool idea, to show, you know, we have all the earthbound gods. I just like the idea of all these other gods out there for various reasons, and just the visuals of them. I thought Mr. Ribic has done an excellent job at conveying these creatures, and it's lovely artwork. It's a bit dark in a lot of spots, I think, but you know, given the tone of the story, I think it fits well enough. You get, you know, that early Thor. He's got his axe. I can't remember his name of the axe. He hasn't quite been shown to be worthy to possess the hammer. I always mess this up. Mjolnir. I'm sure that's not correct, but he's got this axe that he uses instead, and just you know, the typical young punk kid. And he's very arrogant, and he learns a very valuable lesson in a cave by Gore, who tortures him for like 2 weeks or something like that. And as Thor himself said, that's when he learned fear, which I thought that was pretty cool. A nice character revelation, I guess. We'll see how that plays out. Of course, in the end, not in the end, but later in the story, modern day Thor ends up teaming up with old Thor in the future. So I'd like to see where that's going to go. But also interesting, speaking of young Thor and how he is, old Thor in the story is ready to die. In fact, he wants Gore to finish him off, but Gore won't do it because of what happens in the storyline. Gore decides that Thor will be the last god that he kills, and but he keeps letting his what Thor refers to as Gore's attack dogs, these black creatures that you know, can hurt Thor, but to some degree, but they never kill him. But so he has a run-in with these. Old Thor has a run-in with these dogs and gets hurt pretty badly, but not enough to kill him. But he says basically, you know, why won't you, you know, finish me off? I want to die, which I thought that was really interesting. Yeah, it's just it's a good title. It's on my pull list now. The next storyline is I think it's called God Bomb. Travis talked about that in a past podcast episode where he's reading that. Let's see here. Is there anything else to discuss here? It's very entertaining. I think it's one of the better Marvel Now titles that's coming out. So definitely in my top 5. If I had to just say something like that, it's top 5. I'm not sure where it fits in, but there you go. Let me know what you think about these titles, or about my opinions about these titles. If you'd like to leave feedback on this episode, please do so by emailing longboxreview@gmail.com. You can also leave voicemail at 208-953-1841. You can also leave comments at the blog for individual episodes at longboxreview.wordpress.com. Please rate and review the podcast on iTunes. You can also find Longbox Review on Stitcher. The Longbox Review podcast is a proud member of the Comics Podcast Network. Thanks for listening.